Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Haven Hubcast. I'm your host, Nancy Sheed, and today we are going to get into it with social media, content marketing, blogging, all the things with Julia Dzafic. Julia, so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We got a lot to cover. Julia is the creator of Lemon Stripes, which is a lifestyle blog and Instagram account. And for those of you who are familiar, she shares insights on motherhood, style, recipes, and wellness. She's based here in Connecticut, in Westport, and she is also an author, which you know I love to talk about. She's a cookbook author. For the cookbook is called Garden Grown. Is that right, Julia?
That's correct.
Inspiring readers with her approachable recipes and love for organized, I need to talk about that, joyful living. So, Julia, I'm excited to be here and sort of hear more about your journey. Before we get to where you are now, let's take it back a little bit and say, you know, we were talking about this before we started recording, like blogs and Instagram didn't exist when you were in school, or maybe they did, but they were not career paths, so to speak. So can you take us back to sort of what was getting you excited when you were a younger person or your career? How did your career path start out?
So I actually was a political science major and thought I was going to work in public policy. I quickly learned that that was not for me, and the bureaucracy of it all was not something that I could handle. So I pivoted, moved to New York, and decided to just take the first job I could get, which was actually at Condé Nast. If you've ever seen The Devil Wears Prada, I was an assistant similar to that.
I was in the magazine world. I get you. I was on the business side, so I stayed away from the Condé Nasties, but I know of what you speak.
Yeah, it was a vibe. Anyway, despite that job not being great, it's where I kind of fell in love with fashion and really putting yourself together and making sure you put your best foot forward in what you wear. And I was very, very interested in that. At that time, I also was going to this program to learn how to be a health coach.
Mm.
So I was learning about wellness. I was learning about food. I was learning about cooking, and the school was hiring. So I went to work there. I did sales there for several years, kind of moved up the ladder there, moved into the marketing
The health
department.
coaching school. Sorry, the health.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I worked
Got
at the
it.
school, which is actually where I met my husband. So we are both into that like health and wellness world and have been for 20 years now, which is a crazy number
Awesome.
to say. But I worked there for several years. And while I was there, I started a blog called, at the time it was called Lemons and Loafers. Now it's called Lemon Stripes, because I was very into healthy cooking and very into fashion. And I would share recipes. I had health coaching clients as well as working at the school. And I would share my recipes with my clients. I'd share tips for how to drink more water, like very simple things. And I put it on this blog thinking it would only be for my clients. But at the time, there was no Instagram yet. So I would post this on my Facebook wall. And, you know, my friends and family would read it and they would share it with their friends and family. And it just kept growing, like very, very organically without Instagram.
With email? Sorry, I'm going to dive right in and start asking questions. So how were you, so you were promoting it through social primarily, or were you also trying to grow a list? You know what I mean, in terms of email?
I was not trying to do anything. I wasn't even thinking of it as a career path. I was just writing it for fun as a side hustle. I mean, I had like a full-time job. So as it started growing, I didn't actually make a single dollar off of my blog for the first 2 years.
Mm.
But as it started growing, I started realizing, oh, I can monetize this. And it was a very kind of like early content creator situation. It was, being a content creator wasn't a thing. Being a blogger was a thing. And I was one of the first ones in the city who was like doing what I was doing. And we all kind of had this little group and we would like lift each other up and cross promote. And that's how I grew there.
Mm.
In 2011 or 12, whenever Instagram started, I started using it to promote my blog posts, basically like as just a fun thing. I didn't think that would go anywhere. And that also grew very quickly, organically, and was kind of a crazy growth spurt there. At a certain point, I was working like 90-hour weeks trying to keep up with the Instagram and my blog, and also working at my job in marketing. And I really wanted to have a baby. So this was, I guess, 8 years ago now. And
Wow.
I was working with a fertility specialist. I couldn't get pregnant. I kept having miscarriages. Sorry to go into this. This is not part of this story, but
No, this is part of the journey. I know. I literally like this is always part of the journey, of course. Like I appreciate you sharing.
yeah. So she was like, you can't be working 90-hour weeks. You're driving yourself crazy. You have to pick one or the other. Are you going to blog? Are you going to do content? Or are you going to do your job? And I was making about the same amount of money on both at the time. And I said, I
Mm.
will give Lemon Stripes, which I had changed the name to at that point, a year, see how it goes, if we can afford it. And that was 8 years ago.
Wow. And that was a big decision. But the fact that you said choices were moderately equal in terms of monetary value, that was no longer a side hustle, right?
Right.
Like that was
Right.
far from being a side hustle,
Right.
which is amazing. I love that you just sort of said things just kept growing and building. It sounds like you, though, were intentional in what you were doing, right? It doesn't mean you went out and you're like, I'm going to become a successful blogger, but I'm getting a sense of just staying consistent and true to what you did is what helped you grow, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I never, even at the beginning, was trying to grow. I never thought I could be like, for a lack of a better word, famous on the internet. Like that was not a thing back then.
Right.
So it wasn't something I was striving for. And I do think it was a lot easier to grow then because there were a lot
Yes.
less people doing it. So it was a very different situation. But I think what led to my success, one was meeting a lot of other people in the industry, making sure that I went to every single event, everything I got invited to, just said yes, 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 yes.
Nice.
Which in retrospect, I was like 22, so I could do that. Now I probably couldn't. But I said yes to everything, was everywhere, had my face everywhere I could be, and also worked with other people to like lift them up and really try
Cross
to
promote.
work together to like grow all of us at the same time. I'm still friends with many of those creators today. But the other thing that I did was really post consistently and post my style, my fashion, the recipes that I liked, things that weren't necessarily exactly what everyone else was doing. And I posted, when I tell you, 5 days a week on my blog every single day for like 8 years without a break. Like I would take a week off at the holidays and that was it. And I was crazy about it. And I think that helped me a lot because people would expect it and they'd get there and it would be there.
Do you see my face? You just made my stomach hurt when you said that. I'm like, and this is before we had
Yeah.
like, a lot of the productivity tools we have in place now to make life easier. I'm assuming this was this like pre Canva or
Oh,
pre
yes,
having
pre
a
everything.
virtual assistant who could do things while you were sleeping or
None of these things existed. Let me tell
before
you,
you had a
I went to an
schedule.
in-person Photoshop class. I remember this
Oh,
woman who was like some sort of art director was teaching in-person Photoshop class. It was like a 3-day full day course. Learned how to do Photoshop myself, just kind of soaked it all up. Again, in your 20s you can do things like that and
yeah.
it's different today. But it was fun.
But I'm hearing you with consistency both in content output as well as your style, right? Like it seems like you also nailed your style and your voice and the things that are important to you. So you probably were having a very consistent looking and feeling vibe and brand when you did it. I can remember those 2011, 2012 days of Instagram. I think they're just pictures of me and my boys or we would do those picture a day challenges. Do you remember those? You would be like and you're like, "Okay, forget it."
With the funny filters. Yeah, I remember all of that.
Yeah.
Crazy times.
How did it evolve in terms of you staying either loyal to Instagram or at what point do you say, I have to try everything? Or did you say, I'm just going to go deep in Instagram. Everybody else can do what they're doing, but I'm here. I've got the audience. This is where I'm going to dedicate my time. Or, is that something you reflect on every year? Because I know that's a question for everybody. I feel like I have to be all places, and be everywhere to all people. How have you navigated that?
It's a good question. I don't have a perfect answer, but for me personally, what has worked is that I stick with what I know. I stick with what I'm good at. I do not have TikTok. I did for a minute and it was like, it wasn't for me. I know I could have more success. I know I could make more money if I went on TikTok, if I made a Substack, if I did everything that everyone else is doing. But at the end of the day, what works for me is writing on my blog, is posting my little Instagrams, writing my newsletter,
Mm,
and staying sane.
mm.
I have two small children, so I also can't really push myself too hard right now. like you mentioned earlier, I wrote a book last year, or I wrote a book 2 years ago that published last year.
Nice.
And it was amazing and a very cool experience, but it just about
That's a full-time job.
killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I realized I wanted to do that to see how far I could push myself. And it was too far. And I got really sick. I had Epstein-Barr virus and I was very unwell last year.
Oh, I'm
and it's
so
because
sorry.
I pushed myself too hard. It's okay. I'm good now. But well, I think the point of my story is that I choose happiness over trying to be everywhere at once right now. And that's just the phase of my life that I'm in. I think with 2 small kids, I can only do so much.
I think that's great advice for anybody at any stage in life right this minute. So we'll take that. And I think though, I'm going to honor that you said, stick with what I know. That meant though, you still were always reiterating. So if Instagram's coming out with a new thing, or you're hearing that short form video is a thing, right? Like, it sounds like you're not staying in the trenches of like, this is the only thing I'm doing. You just kind of stayed in your lane, learning how to maximize and be and optimize in the lanes you were in, right? I mean, to keep growing your audience.
Yes. I mean, in the last 2 years, Reels have taken over
Right.
photos, which was like where I really shined. So that was kind of a bummer for me, but I had to learn how to shoot Reels. I had to learn how to make them pretty without being too perfect. And when I started doing Instagram, it was about a very polished aesthetic. It was about everything, not a single strand of hair out of place, everything perfection all the time, very shiny. It's not like that anymore. And that was a really hard shift for me. So I kind of have made it my own by like, I still like everything to have a certain aesthetic, but I can let loose a little bit.
Right.
It's a little bit. It's nice, to be honest.
But to your point, you're still probably, I shouldn't say competing, but your content is going up against professional grade video now. Like, you're going up against advertisers, right? Like, your content is being seen in a feed where there is professional advertisers or professional content creators. I'm not saying you're not one, but I just see some flip through and I'm like, how does one compete? I want to get back to
to answer that really quick is I think the only thing you can do is not compete. Yeah. You can create the content without trying to be anybody else, without trying to compete with those things. And I have an audience that isn't the biggest audience on Instagram, but they're very loyal. They're very engaged and they're amazing. I mean, I've learned so much from the people who follow me. We're like, we support each other. They feel like friends at times. And I think catering to them as opposed to trying to cater to new followers who I've never even met yet and don't know anything about me or my history or my family is not, in my situation, is not worth the time.
Yeah. So I'm hearing you prioritize engagement and doing what's engaging over the, I hate to say spray and pray or the
yes,
going crazy with hashtags or being focused. I'm always a fan of focusing on quality, not quantity. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I mean, the numbers are important, but if you have a unengaged big audience, I'd much rather have and I'm sure yours is not a small audience, but an engaged audience. I'm going to shift for 2 seconds back to the book because, in working with books, sometimes it's, well, one, you have all this content and all these great ideas and you're like, all right, here's another outlet. And then you have a community and theory, kind of built in to be, a warm audience to sell it to. It sounds like aside from challenging yourself, what was the turning point or the sort of decision point when you said, all right, I've got enough here to make a book or I want to try the book? Was there one sort of catalyst that made you sort of commit to that?
It was 2 things. One was I was feeling burnt out by Instagram. And as much as I do love it and feel very grateful for the flexible job it's given me, it is hard to keep up and it is hard to create content constantly and it's hard to be criticized constantly. And I was feeling burnt out and was thinking maybe I could figure out something else in another path. And I've been cooking my whole life, or not my whole life, my whole adult life, I should say. Food is very important to me. And during the pandemic, my husband built this big, huge, beautiful garden. We have chickens and this, the food from the earth is a very big part of our lives. And I was sharing that during the pandemic and people kept asking more and more for recipes from our garden. And what do I do with all these tomatoes? What do I do with all these cucumbers? And I was like, this sounds like an idea. So I pitched it to an agent who then signed me on. And then we pitched it to editors. And I was taken on by DK, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. And they were wonderful to work with.
Fun.
They designed the most beautiful book. I put my heart and soul into this. There's 108 recipes in there. everything. Like there's a chapter for each vegetable. So there's a cucumber, tomato, carrots, garlic and onion, herbs, eggplant, et cetera, et cetera.
How fantastic.
It's a very
But
cool
to your
book.
point, it's a full-time job. Nobody tells you
Oh,
that. Like,
absolutely.
and the other thing I would be curious on, writing it is a full-time job, then marketing and promoting it's another full-time job, right?
The writing it was 1,000 times easier than the promoting of it.
I know. It's a secret in the publishing world nobody talks about. No.
Yeah. And you think you're going to make all this money because you get an advance up front and you're like, oh, wow, a big chunk of change. But then it goes into the photographer,
Exactly.
the food stylist, the prop stylist, the assistants, the PR person. It's like, well, I made nothing on that. Never mind. But it was fun.
Yeah. No. There's some dirty little publishing secrets of the economics behind the scene. Everybody's like, it looks so glamorous. I'd love to write a book. I'm like, let's talk about it.
No. Don't recommend. I will not be doing it again.
Exactly. Like ticking author off my list. I've done it and we're finished.
But I have to say, it is the thing that, besides my children, obviously, that I am the most proud of in my life. I just think it is so me. It's so amazing. It's so helpful. And I love the feedback I get on it. And I'm so, so proud of it.
And it's tangible. I mean, and that ties us into the next conversation. I mean, your children are also very tangible, but it is tangible. And it's not to say that all the work you've put into Instagram and your blog is not tangible. You can't hold it in your hands. And if the whole world shuts down, or as we've just experienced, this might air a few weeks later, but platforms can just be shut down, or platforms can change the rules, right? Nobody can change the rules, and your cookbook and your book doesn't still stand up. You can still hold it and touch it, and it's yours. So I can only imagine that has a different feel in terms of something you've done or accomplished relative to the virtual feel of Instagram and your blog. That makes total sense. But I've kind of puts us in a good spot of what advice are you giving now, Julia, for people who say to you, what are your thoughts about Instagram? Are you still burnt out? Should we leave it? Are you anti-social media? What advice are you sharing with people who are seeking kind of what you're trending towards these days?
Well, I think if it didn't pay my bills, it would be very different. But I would make like 80% of my income off of Instagram. So
Yeah.
I have to be there.
Yeah.
If I didn't, I think I'd be able to take more breaks. I think as an elder millennial, one of our favorite phrases is setting boundaries. And it's really true, as much as we make fun of that. I work a lot in therapy over setting boundaries with social media. And it's incredibly important to set boundaries for what you're posting and how much of yourself you're sharing, because if someone's going to criticize you or troll you on the internet, if you're only sharing a portion of you, they're not really trolling you as a person, but only what you've posted.
Wow,
and that
that's
was a
great advice.
big thing that I've learned in therapy is that the other thing with social media boundaries is how we consume. And obviously right now, with this, again, this will probably air later, but the fires in LA and the inauguration and just a lot of crazy things online and in the media. And it's hard to consume that 24/7. So I try to set boundaries on how much I'm consuming as well as how much I'm posting. And that is really, for me, the only way to survive Instagram being my job.
As well as being conscious to engage, right?
Right.
But in the same vein, not feeling like you're on for 24/7.
Right.
Well, Julia, I feel like this is the tip of the iceberg of sort of getting behind the scenes of a content creator and your journey. If people want to connect with you or find more or learn more, where can they go?
So I post most often on my Instagram, which is at Lemon Stripes. And I also have a blog, which is lemonstripes.com. And if you want a really fun cookbook, then you can buy that anywhere cookbooks are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. It's called Garden Grown.
No.
And yeah.
Awesome. Well, the Haven community is excited to have been connected to you. And thank you for your time and sharing your journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
And this concludes another episode of the Haven Hubcast. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, give us a review, subscribe, and share with others. And we'll see you soon in another Hubcast.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.